Good afternoon, folks. We are ready to call today's Policies and Priorities meeting to order for Monday, December 1st. It's 1 p.m. I will ask if there's any added items to the agenda at this time. Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to adopt the agenda for today as presented. Oh, sorry. Oh, no, because no worries. I would ask for an adoption of the agenda as presented. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I move that we adopt the agenda for Council Policies and Priorities Committee meeting for Monday, December 5th, as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. We will move along then to the adoption of the previous minutes from our Policies and Priorities meeting from November. Could I ask for a motion? Mayor Dahl.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I would so move the minutes from November 7, 2022 Committee of Council Policy and Priorities meeting as presented.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Are there any errors or omissions to those minutes? Seeing none, then I will ask, all in favor? That motion is also carried unanimously. We will now move along to item 3, business arising from the minutes. Are there any questions or quick concerns about the minutes from November 7th? Okay, I see none. We will move along to item number 4, presentations and delegations, and CAO Williams, who will be speaking to this or introducing our delegation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll introduce today we have Staff Sergeant Wright with us to lead us through the quarterly report.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. I'm here today to talk about our quarter 2, which is a little bit, again, different than the town's calendar. Our quarter 2 goes from July 1st to September 30th. So that's the policing report and the statistics that I'm speaking to. However, certainly if you have anything more current that you'd like to discuss, we'll have time for that. So as per usual, I get these reports from K Division, from Operational Strategy Branch, and I populate them with the OLS Municipal data, information, and statistics. And then they give me this report, which you see before you. The first thing I'd like to discuss maybe is the letter that is addressed to Mayor Judy Dahl and, of course, Council, with respect to where we're at with the body-worn cameras. Now, the body-worn cameras are still being rolled out incredibly slowly. I'd like to see them in OLS sooner than later, but my understanding is we're not slated until 2024. According to the letter, the cameras are being rolled out to 3 detachments in Alberta in 2023 as pilots, and then the rest of the detachments should follow thereafter. So with regards to the municipal policing report, some of the information is duplicate because when I talk about my community consultations or engagements, it also, on page 1 of my report, it also is part of priority 2, which is community engagement. So it's a duplication. But I'll speak first to crime reduction. So during that inclusive period that I'm reporting on, the habitual offenders and curfew and compliance checks, there were 6 such people in the town of OLS that were subject to court-imposed conditions, and there was 21 curfew checks on them to ensure compliance. And failure, of course, to do so would be them being arrested, brought back, and further processed through the courts. Drug warrants, I'm very, very pleased to report that we had 3 search warrants executed in over those 3 months under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. and 5 charges under the CDSA resulted. Now, it's a bit of a snowball effect because those statistics are even more this third quarter, which I'm not speaking to, but I can allude to at the end in terms of some recent enforcement activity in the town of Olds that has produced incredible results. Community engagement. There's certainly a lot down here. I can go through it in abbreviated form. July 1st, the Olds Detachment were present for the Canada Day Parade in Red Surge, as well as I think there was a few on bicycles. On July 25th, the Boys and Girls Club of Olds completed a detachment tour. On August 3rd, myself and municipal enforcement attended a Focus Body and Mind Equine Day Camp just outside of Torrington, which involved youth from Olds. And there was a little article in the paper where they learned trust and relationship activities through handling horses. So that was a very eventful day for us both. On September 1st, 2nd, 6th, 7th, and 8th, we decided, school's back, and we all went to the various schools within Olds as well as outside Olds, and ensured, parents dropping off their kids were mindful of the rules, and everybody was safe in terms of pedestrian crossing at the school. On September 6th, I attended the last town council meeting to represent Quarter 1 police report. On September 7th, myself and municipal import. Sorry, I'm stealing a lot of your stuff. You okay? All right. So we both went to the Alberta Health Substance Abuse Coalition at the Olds College Wetlands Garden, which was attended by Olds residents as well as Olds College students. The workshop taught participants drug addiction and mental health, as well as community supports in place to address the needs of persons and families struggling with those addictions. On September 8th, participated in Olds Community Showcase event with most of you at the secondary arena. September 19th, myself as well as the mayor and the council attended the Queen Elizabeth II's memorial service at the Cenotaph at Centennial Park. September 23rd, Olds Detachment participated in a bike rodeo that was developed by municipal enforcement. We had it at the fire hall, and it was an incredible turnout. It was amazing. It was an amazing day. And then lastly, September 27th, we participated in a meeting with Olds citizens on patrol, town councilors, municipal enforcement concerning citizens on patrol getting back and running again. Priority 3, mental health and domestic violence, dovetails into the community engagement as well, just in that we were involved in those mental health workshops as well as the equine day camp. Okay. Looking at the statistics, so I have the statistics within the policing report as well as these statistics as well. But just going through them as you'll find that there's a lot of reduction in stats, which is what we'd like to see. However, there's a couple that are really large increases. One is the CDSA offenses are up 600%, and I'd like to explain that. So last year we went from 1 CDSA offense for that July 1st to September 30th period. This year we went up to 7. And it's not that more people are committing CDSA offenses. It's quite the contrary, they're now getting caught. So we do have, we were lucky enough to receive a second posting member to our detachment who has been spearheading a lot of drug work within town and engaging external RCMP resources. And certainly we are clamping down harder on the drug trade. So, yes, it's a high statistic, but it reflects the enforcement. The other one that looks high is other federal acts, going from 3 to 8, which is 167%. And that is largely due to just charges related to the Youth Criminal Justice Act for young offenders, because they're not charged the criminal code per se. They're children of the YCGA. So there was just a slight increase from 3 to 8. Because of it. Sorry?
Excuse me, Staff Sergeant Wright, I believe we have a question of you of this report, so if we could ask that just right. Mayor Dahl?
Just clarity, please, for the acronym CDSA for myself and viewers.
Yeah, sorry about that. Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. It's a federal statute that is linked to the criminal code, but it pertains to drugs possession, trafficking, things of that nature. The RCMP has many, many acronyms, and unless you're working for them, it's really hard to keep track. It's similar to the military, I think, or any other federal service. Yeah. Turning page and going over to human resources. We're largely on the municipal side of the house. We are largely full. Out of the 11 established positions, we have 9 working. One's on special leave and one's a hard vacancy, which we continue to work with the RCMP to fill. In terms of our detachment support, we are in a process of moving from municipal employees to public servants. That process is going very well. In the interim, we've hired some temporary federal public servants just to bridge the gap until we can get the permanent incumbents in place. We have struggled with support staff resourcing most of this year. It's something that we've tried to keep on top of it to the best of our ability, and so it has affected some of our public hours, depending on how many people I have coming to work that day. So. Next page is budget. And I don't know if anybody has any questions arising from that, and I'll do my best to try to answer them, otherwise I'll have to get back to you. Okay. Maybe something might come up later, but in the meantime, the last part of the report is the crime statistics. And again, I mean, I say almost the same thing every 3 months when I come to visit you. They fluctuate from year to year based on who's in town and who's doing what. I'd like to say that largely it looks like things are relatively staying the same. The numbers don't appear to be too astronomical. If you've had a chance to review it, is there any specific part of those statistics you'd like to ask questions?
Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz, through you to Sergeant Wright. Thank you, Sergeant Wright, for the presentation. I do have a question with regards to the vacancies. Is that a hard vacancy, the one that is, you have one under it? Is that our community liaison officer?
It is, yes.
Is there any word on that yet?
Well, I can explain to you what I've done. So when our last incumbent was in the position, I believe he left the position in January, early January, and we ran a vacancy. Because he's an incumbent, he wasn't readily releasable from that position. I've since communicated to the RCMP in Edmonton that I need that position filled. I simply need that filled. So anyway, we were able to free up that position, and we were able to advertise that position. And unfortunately, we didn't have anybody apply to it, which is crazy because, I mean, Bowles is a beautiful community, and that's a fantastic job. It's an absolutely fantastic. In fact, I'd love to have it, really. So after that, I kind of, with the assistance of some of my NCOs, we went on a little bit of a headhunting, looking for people and asking them. And We did identify one out of Airdrie, but that person, I'd like to say we've never been closer for his releasability to come to Olds. I've been away for the last 2 weeks. I'm still going through my 350 emails. I'm hoping there's something in there in terms of an update. If I don't see anything, I know who to call and find out. But I've been hoping since September 1st that every month, September 1st, October 1st, November 1st, December 1st, that he shows up and he starts working, because it would greatly assist me with what all these things that I'm doing here. So still hoping, still waiting. Now, if it doesn't come to fruition in the new year, I'm going to have to potentially look elsewhere.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it looks like you had a lot on your plate with the community events that you attended, and so it would be nice to have that position filled and take some of the weight off your shoulders.
Well, that's my favorite part of my job.
Counselor Wilson, I apologize.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz, and thanks Staff Warren and Staff Sergeant Writings. Just have a very high-level question. In the past or recently, we've had some local citizens, delegations, but concerned citizens come in and talk to council about traffic enforcement in the town, crosswalk or school crosswalk, all crosswalks, but in particular, I think school crosswalks, the four-way stop by the the middle school, speeding in town on streets. Any thoughts from you relative to in-town traffic enforcement and how big an issue it is that you perceive it to be, and is it possible this could become a priority for 2023?
So I am aware of the delegations and their concerns. For Olds, I'd like to see more traffic enforcement. I would. I mean, it's a balance. It certainly is a balance, because, you know, you've got citizens who'd like to see more traffic enforcement, and then you've got people who don't speak up that maybe don't want to see as much traffic enforcement. It's that balance that you want. You don't want to go too hard on it. Sometimes it also is resourcing, and depending on how many people I have working that day, to send them out with municipal enforcement and do these projects. I know for the month of December, typically, it's always impaired driving, and so we'll be out more prevalently in the evenings than the daytime. I certainly think that it could be, if that's council's desire, to make it a priority for 2023, 2024. I would like to have a dedicated traffic member. I just can't break that position off my org chart right now with the resourcing I have. I need more members, but it's really hard for me to come to council and ask for more when I'm still struggling to fill that community policing position. Now, with regards to the job description for the community, CRO, Community Resource Officer, part of his mandate when he starts is traffic. It is traffic. So, I mean, but it's also community engagements. It's also being in the schools. It's also crime reduction and organizing and staying on top of the habitual offenders. It's also, you know, we had a very large organization approach us recently with regards to concerns over a series of break-and-enters to their property. And that is the member that I'd be sending over there with municipal enforcement to discuss crime reduction initiatives and what is it, environmental design? Crime reduction through environmental design. So it is my hope, because I'm not asking for another member, I have a position. It is my hope that that will be part of his portfolio to go and do those daily drive around towns and see what's going on. But certainly, if it's council's desire to put it in your priorities for next year, I welcome it.
Thank you.
Counselor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz, through you to Sergeant Wright. So, thank you for that, because it does talk about traffic. I have a sort of traffic-related question, and that is, in your report with regards to motor vehicle collisions, it had 40 in 2021, 41 in 2022, that during this July, September, so I imagine it's, year-to-date, I have no idea what the numbers are. But are you looking at, within these numbers, are that just in the town of Olds, or does that include the county and the highway?
No, these are old.
Just Olds, okay. So is there anywhere in the town of Olds that seems to be, high collision areas? Like, is there some kind of trend that we can point to say, okay, this is something that we need to look at as a town to improve the intersection, or is it just all over the place?
I think I'm going to have to get back to you on the collision hotspots in town. I mean, I can speculate, being a resident here, that 50th Avenue is definitely relevant, as is 2A, 54th Street, 57th Avenue, 54th Street, locations leading into Highway 27, that kind of stuff. But if you want specifics, I'd ask that I could try to get back to you with locations, for sure. And I can also put that through municipal enforcement and the director.
Go ahead.
I have one more thing.
Okay.
So, very recently, there was a project in town with the Alberta Law Enforcement Response Team, which is it's a provincially funded organization that includes the RCMP and other municipal police forces. But the one in this case was out of Red Deer, so it was all RCMP. And they were working a project in the town of Olds. There's going to be a very, very large media release tomorrow, and I don't want to steal their thunder, but they had incredible success this last week with a search warrant that netted a very large amount of serious hard drugs and firearms in town. So those have been taken off the street. They're in the care and custody of the alert, and tomorrow in Red Deer there'll be a big media release on that. So stay tuned.
Thank you for that information. Are there any further questions or comments for Staff Sergeant Wright? Seeing none, I want to thank you very much for your quarterly report to Town Council. We appreciate that, and I will ask for a motion to accept. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I'd make the motion that we accept the report from Staff Sergeant Warren Wright as presented for information.
Thank you very much. I will ask for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you again. So we will now move on to item number 5, reports and statistics. And C.O. Williams, I see item number 5A is the new to you report. And who will be speaking to that?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Director Wagstaff will present this report to us.
Administration is presenting further information as requested by Council regarding the operation of New to You. This slide is more to explain what New to You is for the public that may be listening than it is for Council itself. But just a quick review, that New to You is a thrift store run by volunteers, operated as a social enterprise by the town of Olds. It's donations of household goods and furniture. They are accepted through donation and then sold through the thrift store. There is no clothing donation or sales. Any clothing that the store receives is transferred over to IODE, which is another thrift store run by the not-for-profit volunteers. It provides low-cost alternatives and a means of repurposing household goods. And then any revenues that are generated as a surplus are distributed back to the community through a grant process. New to You became a town enterprise in 2010. Previously, the funds generated from the store supported the administration costs of Olds Neighborhood Place. When the Olds Neighborhood Place Society dissolved, the town of Olds took on various programs run by the society, and the New to You thrift store is one of the projects the town continues to operate. New to You is a community-based volunteer-supported program operating a retail store that resells goods donated through donations, as I had mentioned. The original objectives were to provide economical house items, a place for the community to recycle and repurpose household goods, diverting them from the landfill, and provide grant funding opportunities for those who wouldn't meet the criteria in other grant programs offered in the community. Since coming under the town umbrella in 2010, New to You grants have provided $332,421 to a wide variety of community groups. Grant opportunities support to exist an active lifestyle, health and wellness initiative programs, and services that are not funded by FCSS, family and community support services. New to You would not be successful without the tremendous support of the volunteers and the generous donations from the community members. And this store relies on those volunteers to be able to operate. Just an overview, as I mentioned, it's a social enterprise, thrift store. It operates outside the regular typical realm of municipal government. Operational costs of the store, including the salary for the part-time supervisor position, are covered through the revenue generation. And the supervisor manages the store and coordinates the strong brigade of dedicated volunteers. I skipped one here. There we go. There's two of these. Beyond the operational costs, the town contributes to the regular maintenance of the building. That's the preventative maintenance, the minor maintenance, snow shoveling, etc. And it assists volunteers with other physical tasks. So the reorganizing of shelves or moving physical items that the volunteers are unable to physically do themselves. There's a dump run at least once a week, which requires 1 to 2 hours round trip for 2 Sportsplex staff, and about another 1.5 hours every week for other tasks that they support. And that includes the time from when they leave what they're doing at the Sportsplex until they return to their regular duties. Facilities staff average 1.5 hours to 2 hours a week, occasionally as high as 5 in 1 week. In total, it's an estimated, at the very minimum, 208 hours per year, which equates to 10% of an FTE in a work year. This is unaccounted for labor. It does not get fiscally attributed to the operations of the store. Currently, the store has 1 employee, as I mentioned. When that employee is ill or off on leaves for vacation or any of their other leaves, in the short term, if they're just gone for an appointment, the volunteers can cover, but otherwise it does need some backfill. Again, that's not fiscally accounted for in our coverage of the store itself. Administrative time, including human resources, finance, community services, the director, health and safety processes, are all unaccounted for costs in both time and financial allocation. So we do provide services outside of the cost recovery model that we have in place, and those soft services are not accounted for in any fashion. The environmental scan that we have looked at and done what I would consider to be a deep dive into looking at the operations of New to You. There's an increasing number of trips to the dump due to a noticeable increase in what I would classify as junk being deposited in the donation bin or behind the store. Material left at the rear of the store that is not sufficient quality for resale is essentially garbage and a cost for us to take to the dump. And that cost is both tipping fees as well as the time to haul it down there. When New to You originally opened for many years there was only IODE and New to You as options for the community for low-cost alternatives and a means to repurpose household goods and clothing. Each of the two had two different areas of donations. They coordinated together. If IODE received household goods or if New to You received clothing, they would swap them back across. That relationship still exists today, a good working relationship between the two volunteer thrift stores. One of the things that is noted in the research that we did is it had been brought to our attention from several sources, and we have now affirmed it, that the industry standard business model leverages clothing sales in the thrift industry. That's the mainstay, with other resale of used household items or trinkets, that sort of thing, as their secondary source of income. This is not the basis for New to You operations. From the original principles, that was the piece that IODE had. They split those markets. Over the years, a number of privately operated thrift, used, and consignment stores have opened in Olds. Many have established a sustainable presence in the Olds market. Currently, there is 8 such privately operated stores that have a similar or overlapping inventory as to that of New to You. When New to You became a town operation, there was one other not-for-profit, the IODE, and one private, which was Refined. The landscape has changed in our community. Secondhand and thrift stores operating in Olds has grown significantly, and it appears that they have established themselves. As well, there's Dollarama, which didn't exist when New to You originally became part of the town operations or previous to that, and the community lending shelf. So those help fill some of that need within our community to have an opportunity for those with lower economic means to be able to afford and find items within our community. The aim of providing low-cost items to those in need is well serviced by the secondhand, thrift, and discount stores existing within the community. And there is an abundance of thrift used stores within the community that is in a very competitive market. One of the biggest margins that New to You has been able to do in the past has been around furniture. Beds, bed frames, mattresses, dressers, that kind of thing. Been done very well for New to You. What has been the trend that we have seen is that quality and the quantity has been decreasing in the furniture. In essence, New to You used furniture as its basis for its finances, and then the rest of the household items helped as secondary sales. There are now present in the market private thrift stores and consignment stores that will go to the house and pick up the furniture and then provide an option of either donation or consignment. So that's a significant change in New to You's operations. The other trend that we have noticed is the surpluses, and I looked back, it wasn't just a trend, it's been ongoing right from the original transfer following 2014 and onward. The surpluses transferred to reserves year over year is concerning, and the underlying numbers is that there's only been 3 times that a small surplus has been transferred to the reserves. Every other year, the grants that have been issued out have been a combination of a draw from reserves and the operation dollars. The reserve now sits at $39,000. In the last 3 years, we've reduced down to $8,000 and $10,000 the allocation in grants to the community. That is 1/3 of what had been granted out previous to that. And in 2 years, there had actually been as high, in the last 12, there had been as high as $50,000. So that has had a significant drop-off. When I looked at those numbers initially, I just didn't want to discount that the pandemic disruption was the cause, but you looked at those underlying numbers and it was not, because what we saw was revenues dipped, but everything sort of stayed parallel. So as revenues dipped, so did the costs that we had, so those stayed constant. Administration is presenting information as requested by council regarding New to You and as social enterprise thrift store operated by the town of Olds, that the New to You thrift store operation be closed. Even utilizing a strong and dedicated volunteer base, the business model is increasingly eroding and is not sustainable. Labor efficiency is essential to focus on core functions and other department priorities. There's an abundance of private enterprise thrift and used goods stores in the community. Their existence fills a service provision to the community for low cost and repurposed items. And they appear to be sustainable and ever present, an environment that did not exist previously. The remaining funds in the New to You reserve would be used for related purposes to the New to You criteria, and we would still grant out those dollars under that criteria as it exists. In the future, a portion of the community grants budgetary commitment that council has put into the 2023 budget will replace types of funding that New to You grants provided to the community. So between the reserve that's existing and an establishment of a community grants program from the town, that would be able to replace on the granting side to those community agencies that have relied on New to You grants or benefited from New to You grants. At this time, we did meet this morning with the New to You volunteers and the New to You part-time staff member. And we cannot underscore enough a thank you to the New to You volunteers past and present for their amazing generosity and dedication to the success of New to You and the impacts their efforts have had for community group projects they funded. We do plan to have a recognition, acknowledgement, celebration for the New to You volunteers, both current and past, in February by hosting a dinner for them and saying a thank you to the volunteers, both past and present. And in summary, the operation of the store it does not financially provide the return for the attention required to operate it properly. This is not a function of this is not a result of the leadership or of the competency of the manager that's in place or the volunteers themselves. It is just a reflection of what we're looking at in the environment that now faces within our community and running a thrift store, what it will take to be successful moving forward, and being able to take the action before there's a crash with the store itself. December 22nd is the last scheduled day of regular operation. A final clearance sale is planned for mid-January with dates and times to be determined. And as I mentioned, grant opportunities will continue to exist. Those further details will be released in the spring of 2023. And there will be a volunteer recognition and thank you dinner for current and past volunteers. I would be open to any questions or comment.
Thank you, Director Wagstaff, for this report. And again, too, I concur. A big thank you goes out to all our past and present volunteers and staff of the New to You store. And I'm going to open it up for questions, and I believe that Mayor Dahl did have her hand up.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this information. First time we've heard this report. Is this report up on our website right now, this slide report?
No, but it is presently ready to be posted on the New to You part of our website. We're just waiting for this presentation to be presented to the council before we made it public. That, as well as the briefing note, will now be public as well.
I encourage you to get that up sooner than later. And I would also ask, did I hear you say this is the first day that you spoke to the staff and the volunteers, all the volunteers to this organization was just today?
With regards to closure, that's correct.
Well, I advise you to get moving on these recommendations for the community to read and get them on our website.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I believe that that is the direction Director Wagstaff was going to go in, and I appreciate that you did present to us and that it will be posted immediately. Are there any further questions or comments? Councillor Walsh.
I'm just curious, are we going to be stuck with a lease or the rental space or cost after this point in time?
We're on a 30-day notice with our current lease, and we'll be providing them the January 31st for notice of our last day of the lease.
Thank you. Any further? Oh, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Blatz, and through you to Director Wagstaff. So if it's not until the January 31st that we would have to be out of there, is that right? So are you looking at operating it until December 22nd and then having some kind of big sale for a couple of days? Is that what you're thinking? Or is there any reason why we can't just operate it till the 15th of January or something? Or what's your thinking involved in the timing?
The plan in place is the seasonal closure was till December 22nd, then they were closed for the Christmas break. Not opening up the 6th of January, but taking that first week just to get everything readied in the store, and then have a week clearance sale, including a Saturday clearance sale. Then taking the final 10 days after that to clean up the store and have it ready to be returned, both disposal of any contents that we still have, as well as preparing the site to be returned to the landlord.
Thank you, Director Wagstaff. Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I just have a different question, not a supplemental. So if somebody else has a question, then they can
I
go
saw
ahead.
no other hands.
Okay, I'll go ahead then. Can you tell me, Director Wagstaff, how much funds was raised or donated to the community in the past 2 years? Do we have that under? And what would be? Do we have a sort of a general idea of all of the costs, the soft costs, the 208 hours that you mentioned earlier in your report? We have any idea of how much money it was costing the town that we didn't cover?
I haven't converted that to a financial, which I can do. I can connect with finance to make that conversion. As far as the grants that have been distributed to the community, in 2021 we did 8,000. In 2022 we did 10,000.
Okay, in 2021 it was obviously during COVID. Any pre-COVID numbers at all?
This is the briefing note that had been provided to council in confidentially previously, that is now being released publicly. So these are the grants to the community, this is the revenue history, and this is the surplus transferred to reserves history.
Okay, thank you. May I continue, Deputy Mayor?
Go ahead, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. So, yeah, I would like to see what the actual costs would be, because before we were always told that, we would cover the costs first, and then whatever was left over would go to the community, and we're obviously not covering all the costs. So it would be good if we were going forward that, that we let people know that it was actually costing us money and to operate, and that we hadn't included all the costs before.
So we're able to do that on those that we've tracked, which has been the time that we've had Sportsplex operators and facility technicians over there. The soft costs that we haven't tracked that we know are there are snow removal. So we haven't tracked the amount of time that different parts of our organization have been over there for snow removal. We also, haven't been able to, or we haven't tracked human resources health and safety, finance. So when the cash outs come over, we know that that's a cost in our efficiency of labor, but it's not something that we have a hard dollar on. The hard dollars are the types of services, supports that we've had over there when we've sent staff over and been able to track the amount of time.
Thank you, Director Wagstaff. I have CEO Williams and then Mayor Dahl.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And just for the Councillor Ryan's comments, when we were first going through this scenario, Director Wagstaff alluded to correctly that we have not tracked these non-budgeted costs very well for various reasons. There used to be I guess really only one or two volunteers who really took over some of these core services, such mainly facility maintenance. But in my best math possible, the minimum cost based on the 200 plus hours of staff time is between $10,000 and $13,000. That's a bare minimum. And then you get into trips to the dump, tippage fees. We can go back and try to get a harder number on that, but I'm confident that's a low estimate. So when you look at the trajectory of the grants, obviously COVID, you can debate whether it's a true form or not, but compared with the market environment of secondhand stores in town, we didn't see this getting any better. And based on the revenue and the quality of donations we're seeing, that's where the recommendation came from financially.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, because it certainly shows that it hasn't been a money maker for the community really, and you know, at the end of the day, we have to be cognizant of the fact that it has cost us X amount of dollars that we never tracked. So thank you very much. I appreciate that comment.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan, and now I'll have Mayor Dahl.
I believe CEO Williams helped me with this. I was just going to ask the same as if we did a actual cost control stats on town hours and soft services. He answered that question for me of our staff and when they were being called to New to You to work from their jobs from the town of Olds. I totally understand that this operation is outside the realm of municipal government. I understand where we're going in the future. My biggest concern is that these facts need to be out for our community to read, and these individuals you spoke to just today, to help them understand why, and why council is in this position. I'm not afraid to say I'm a little frustrated right now because they're hearing the same thing we're hearing just right now, and it can't be easy for them because just the last week, there was 3 new applications over there. This is a lifeline for our community, for a lot of our seniors. This is hard for council to do this, but if they have proper understanding why, and they give us some feedback, it would make my heart happy.
Thank you, CEO Williams.
And just to touch on Mayor Dahl's comment for the second time on the timing of this, we do have human resources factors at play with this decision. So why it's always beneficial, or should I say preferential, to share this information as soon as possible. There are other factors at play. It's not just to keep information from the volunteers. They were shared with it first, and council obviously comes second with the public. So that is the rationale behind the timing, which was largely my decision. The second piece with costs as well, and just going back to my previous comment response to Councillor Ryan, when we do have sportsplex staff or facility staff or community services staff or soft services staff such as HR or finance helping with New to You, that also is an opportunity cost away from their other positions, other jobs, other duties. So it's very difficult to account for that. So sure, we have 2 operators leaving the sportsplex to go shovel the sidewalk or take a garbage to Didsbury, but what are they not doing when they're in Didsbury apart from the wage we're paying them as well? So it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to get the total actual cost into a monetary value, but I just want to assure council and staff and the general public and the New to You volunteers that we spent a long time looking at this and trying to find ways how it could work. But without a significant market adjustment in both those assets New to You is getting donated, or a decrease in our costs, it just wasn't feasible. So with the long-term lease coming due again, it really was a now or never sort of time. So I understand the concerns completely, though.
Director Wagstaff.
And further to that, the operations at New to You has done some innovative things, online auctioning. The store has been reorganized, it's much more of a flow. There's an antique section, so there was lots of things that they had done in there that, to increase accessibility and increase the profitability. That wasn't as much of the issue as it was the changing dynamics in the business environment that we're looking at.
Thank you for that, and I have, Councillor Walsh.
Just curious, looking at the revenue to grant ratio, it's dropped significantly, and I'm just wondering if there's any explanation around that, because back early, they were making pretty substantial grants when the revenue was a lot lower than it was even is today. So I was just curious about how that worked.
So the revenue increase that you see here, where you saw a jump, also had a jump in the cost because we doubled the size of the store. So that made it more efficient in being able to showcase the items. It also had some storage where it was, not stacked up in the back where they had the seasonal exchange. So that helped the store. But again, the revenue increase just basically paralleled what went up. The underlying numbers were that we've been drawing off the reserves for a number of years, and that just slowly over the decade has become to the point of at the same time we're hitting the crossroads of a changing business environment, all comes together at the same time. Initially, I did look to see, was it just a pandemic disruption, or was there some, stronger numbers underneath that were heading in the wrong direction? And that the latter ended up being the look. Was this is a trend, and the trend doesn't look like it's going to change any.
Thank you for that. Seeing no further questions, I do have one question, either to Director Wagstaff or perhaps C.O. Williams. Included in, our utilities for this lease are not included within the leased cost, are they? They are above what we pay for lease, is that correct?
I believe it's included. I'll
Included in
double
the
check
lease?
on that to make sure that when the council will know, and I'll email that around, but
Well, thank you. I'd be curious to know that, because personally seeing the increase in my utilities, and I know from other businesses in town, the costs that have gone up significantly, one of two things would either have to happen. Either we would pay an increased cost for utilities, or our lease would go up significantly to cover those costs as well. So I think that would be some information we should probably be provided as well. Thank you. All right, seeing no further questions of Director Wagstaff, I would like to ask for a motion to accept this report for information. Councillor Daly, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I move that we accept the New to You thrift store report for information as presented. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and I will now call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you so much. That is unanimously carried. Thank you, Director Wagstaff. We will now move along on our agenda to item 5B, the Olds Fire Department third quarter report. CAO Williams, who will be speaking to this?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Today in Justin Andrews' place, we have Paul Wright, Senior Community Peace Officer with the Town of Olds.
Good afternoon, everybody. So on behalf of Director Andrew, I'm going to present the fire department stats. So total number of incidents you can see on there is 123. The turnout time is on there for rural and urban. 4 minutes 15 for rural, urban's 5 minutes 30, and 5 fires per incident, 7 for rural and 5 for urban on there. On to the next page on there, rural incidents, 46. 38 of those were non-fire calls, 3 were fire response, and 3 were fire response with no loss outdoors. Urban incidents, 77. Of that, 77, 74 were non-fire calls, 2 fire response and 1 fire response outdoor no loss for those figures. And the rural stats there and urban stats just on the days of the week that are kind of most busy, or sorry, the times that are most busy. Noon and 5 are kind of the busy times of rural, and urban, noon and 5 again, the busy times there. And the last page there, rural 31 for the calls there, and urban 66, total number of incidents 97.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this report? Seeing none, thank you so much for stepping in and providing us this report today.
Thank you.
I will then call for the motion to accept the third quarter fire services, Olds Fire Department report for information. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I would make the motion that we accept the third quarter Olds Fire Department Services report by Paul Wright, as presented.
You, Councillor Wilson. I will ask then for the vote. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Thank you so much again. And now we're moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is item 5C, the Municipal Enforcement Department report. And I'm assuming that Senior Peace Officer Wright will be presenting that as well.
That's correct, ma'am, and hopefully I can answer any questions better than the fire department ones on this one. So just on the first page there, we're looking at 216 total kind of calls we've got, with the majority or the larger factor, the community standards, is where we get generating a lot of our calls from. Next one underneath that's animal control. Onto our call logs, onto the next page there. Day of the week, Wednesday, just being the busy time for us, and it's just kind of spread across the rest of the week there. Method of complaint, the dispatch services, so that's where people call into bylaw and go through Yellowhead Dispatch, up at 79 or 36.6% of those calls, and next one behind that, officer observed, strangely enough, and the rest are kind of fairly together. And then onto the next page, those two awesome pictures on there. It's much like Staff Sergeant Wright's kind of gone over already. These are the events that we attended. Most of them were kind of in conjunction with the RCMP as well. The Canada Community event, the Community Showcase, the Traffic Safety Month, the first week of school. We did take this into the second week as well, but just kind of a reduced response, I suppose, as other calls were coming in for us. Youth awareness, youth drug awareness evening, the Protective Services Bike Rodeo, which was really good, something we're looking to do again next year, and the Olds Elementary and Horizon School Terry Fox Run, which was another kind of well-received one for us. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Senior CPO Wright. Are there any questions of this municipal enforcement report? Yes, Mayor Dahl.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I see there's a following this report that our legislation clerk or somebody's scrolling up. This one here, is this part of your report?
Yes, it is, ma'am. Yes, I think they're the stats year to date on that.
Thank you very much. I don't know if we have comparisons, but I'm curious to, starting in July, right up till October, the homeless stats continue to rise. Is that consistent? I'm not sure our CEO would be aware of that as he's new this year. Is that I'm going to say average for every year that we would see a stat like that in those times of the year?
I don't know. I mean, when I joined, I suppose we had the initial homeless issue in the ORE grounds, and it subsequently moved on to other parts of the town. I don't know what our previous stats were on that one. I don't think we've had those kind of issues before. Personally, I think it's just a sign of the times that we're starting to see more of the homeless issue now is creeping up towards here from either Red Deer or Calgary. And just as far as those actual stats on there, I mean, just looking through them, obviously the busy times of July, August increases significantly there. Parking and unsightly, just issues for us at that point. And then the kind of September's again busy, and it tails down towards October for us.
Thank you for that information. CEO Williams.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I just want to take the opportunity to focus council attention on the list of category breakdown on the earlier the report, where in Q3 there were 216 total calls, which when you take weekends out of account equates with almost 3 calls per day. I know traffic has been a big part of the social media, especially narrative lately, and therefore council's attention, calls we got. But if you look at, actually, it's in 3 out of 5th place out of the actual calls we receive. When you think that our community's, our CPO division has 2 full-time peace officers plus a administrative support, 216 calls in a quarter is a significant burden for those 2 officers. Animal control, especially with no designated animal control officer, great support from a local vet, no question. Every one of these calls takes time to pick up the phone, read an email, respond to, delegate, whatever it might be. So when it comes to, say, traffic enforcement, the common call is to have speed traps or more patrolling. But when you're dealing with 216 calls spread across just 2 full-time bodies, that right there is a detriment to the efficiency of the department to patrol, to sit for an hour or 2 on a corner, to patrol after hours, for instance. So I just want council to be aware that further discussions needed at the council level on the overall direction priorities for our community peace officers, that we can't be all things to all people, and animal control and community standards, dogs, cats, grass, neighbors, etc., etc. It's a growing concern, and it's a very large time commitment for the small staff we have and the overall resources we have to further allocate it. So it's more of a comment than a question, but I just wanted to make that point for council and any public watching.
Thank you, CEO Williams. I did actually make a notation of that myself to have further discussion with this. But are there any further questions of Senior Peace Officer Wright? Seeing none at this time, then I would ask for a motion to accept his quarterly report for information. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I would make the motion that we accept the municipal, pardon? Oh, that we accept the report from Community Peace Officer Paul Wright on municipal enforcement as information.
Thank you for that. I will now ask for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you so much. That motion is carried unanimously. We will move along now to page 38, 5D, Operational and Capital Projects Update, and CEO Williams, who will speak to this.
We have Dr. Grieco here with us to present the report.
Thank you for that. Do you have something you two would like to share with us? Okay, well, thank you for that then. Director Grieco, please go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. So for this report, what I wanted to focus on the start of the discussion was just our public works and our winter road maintenance efforts, as we are in that season. So more for the public's interest is we have essentially 5 town public works employees that take care of most of the roadways. The rest of those efforts are put into hiring contractors and other grading materials, as in the grader and trucking for the uptown. So we do winter road maintenance in 3 distinct fashions. We do snow plowing, so that's mostly done virtually around the clock with whatever resources that we have available within the hours of service that they can operate. So they're doing snow plowing literally the entire time. And this year, unlike in years past, we didn't ticket or tow on red routes. And so what we are considering doing for the efficiency in snow removal, we are considering doing ticketing and towing on red routes. The recent announcement with respect to residential routes, again, was more to make that snow removal more efficient. So currently, we don't have enough signs to transfer back and forth to ticket and tow on the red routes. But when those signs do become available, we will be ticketing and towing in two distinct areas. One of those areas is along 53rd Street where there's a school. So to go around parked vehicles is very difficult on those red routes. So that's one area of concern. The other area is on 54th Street east of the tracks. That's another pinch point for our resources during the plowing. Moving to the next slide is talking about the most recent event, snow event, in which we actually do the snow removal. So as opposed to snow plowing, snow removal is a very, very complex process because that's when it really takes our own internal resources, and we do rely on the contractors to help us with not only the grading, but trucking that snow removal from, in particular, uptown. So the most recent snow event we had, we really started to see the snow coming down on Tuesday, November 1st. And it's not only the snow accumulation, but if we have high wind events, that's where we may analyze the snow that's accumulated and decide whether or not to activate resources. So in this case, Tuesday, Wednesday, we had just under 11 centimeters of snow, but the snow is still blowing. And if we were to call in resources to remove the snow on the Friday, we still have wind. We would have to activate those resources again on the Monday. And so what happens with this, every time we do uptown, it's estimated at roughly about $15,000 a day. That doesn't include the costs that we have on our own resources. And the other piece of that is we typically, in a day in clearing uptown from snow, it usually takes a day. In this event, we were able to clear the uptown area on the Tuesday before uptown opened virtually. So we started in particular very early that morning. We used our own resources to do the plowing in the red routes, and we were able to have uptown completed essentially by Tuesday morning. So that is a very, very good response, but I just want to share that when we are looking at snow removal, we do look into the forecast, and sometimes we will decide to put the resources out when we don't have to spend that additional $15,000. So there's a lot that goes into the decision in cleaning of uptown. Next slide. The third means that we take care of winter maintenance on a road. We also use ice control. We consistently have 5 town resources applying sand and salt within the area. Again, those resources are basically going all winter, and that's also part of the winter maintenance program. Next is just a map of our red areas. These are basically our snow removal routes. And again, for the uptown area, we just want to be going into this winter and having forecasted exactly when we activate the snow removal. Next. Okay. Sorry, bear with me. Moving over to our solid waste. Again, this year we were through the budget engagement survey. There was going to be a sizable increase in our solid waste charges. So to get those same resources, we were going to see approximately $135,000 increase to our solid waste. So through the budget engagement survey, we had 65% of respondents wanted to keep the current schedule with the same time. And so the other question we asked was, would you be in favor of suspending green bin compost pickup during the winter months? And that figure was an astounding 77% responded yes to suspending those services. Reducing those services during the winter months, we do see a considerable less amount of compost during those winter months. And again, during the winter, we're able to reduce some of those arduous process where, you know, the compost doesn't exactly smell that well, but you get a little bit of abatement during the winter months. So we've completed the 2023 collection schedule. It's been posted on the town website and put out through social media. We'll also be sending this most recent change out in the utility bills. And again, this new initiative program, we will do a full-scale review in the spring of 2023 and bring more information back with respect to these changes. The last piece with respect to the compost bins, we will be reducing from 100 bins down to 40. That process will come about next spring when the bins come out. Next. Just a short update with respect to our projects. The Civic Library identifier sign, the footings are completed. We're expecting signs to be shipped December 9th, although we are seeing supply shortages. We're even seeing issues with logistics and getting things. But we do have weather permitting this slated to be completed mid-December. With respect to the 57th north of Hospital, again, those repairs are completed along that roadway there. We will have to maintain that road through internal resources. Moving over to our outdoor skating rink. So again, most people are aware that the pad is completed. Again, we are having supply chain issues with respect to the dasher boards. The dasher boards are not expected to arrive until mid-January. So that is a little bit of a disappointment at the rink, but we're hopeful that we can get these boards installed by mid-January and still get some skating in at the new amenity. With respect to the other outdoor rinks, we have made a lot of headway with respect to these. The ponds, last I checked, Protective Services will be posting out the exact thickness of the ice. Deer Meadows School has had a couple of floods last week. Holy Trinity, the base is built. Essentially, the boards are put up. And Protective Services will help with Holy Trinity and Neil Leatherdale at getting those outdoor rinks up and going. It was a little too cold last week to actually get those flooded. So when it's 25 and below, it's actually very difficult to get those rinks flooded if it's too cold. Winterized porta potties, again, for our public trail system, our winterized porta potties, Centennial, Highlands, Imperial, Rotary Park, the dog park, and the cemetery. Those facilities will be open year-round and available for people using our public pathways. Just to talk a little bit about our Parks and Recreation, again, Parks and Recreation, this time of year, they're also busy doing snow removal, taking care of our winter pathways. They also do a great job in some of our other events that we have within the community. And a big kudos goes out to the entire staff at Parks and Recreation for the efforts on the Santa Claus Parade of Lights and the town float that they put together. Again, it was a great event, and the staff did a tremendous job at decorating the float. They don't only decorate the float, they also put up a lot of our Christmas lighting. They're very, very busy this time of year, and they also do the lighting at the gazebo just in time for the Old Fashioned Christmas, which was a great event this year. And again, just to emphasize, we have actually now posted our trail network priority map for snow removal on our public pathways. This wasn't posted before, but it is up. We basically have priority routing in accordance to the following map. And so you can see basically the corridors of 27 and their priority routes. Green and yellow routes are not on as high a priority. And we try to make sure that we maintain these consistent with Public Works, so we have good connections and mobility throughout the community. And that is it. I will open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Director Greco. Are there any questions of him on the operations? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I have a question or two, not surprising, around snow removal. Just wondering what the process is for school bus routes and how those are handled. I assume those become red routes, priority routes. But as well, how do we go about at the start of every winter season updating what is and isn't a school bus route? Because I assume those can change and vary perhaps from year to year.
Yeah, the school bus routes don't necessarily change year to year. Our red priority routes, the way we handle snow removal is we basically plow the red routes on priority. So if it's a red route, most likely it's a bus priority route. We don't get a lot of changes unless there's a different designation in terms of a roadway changing, but our main corridor arterial routes are our bus routes. And so those do take priority. So when we talk about 53rd and 54th, those are red routes. And so what we want to try to do is make a few modifications in the way that we do enforcement around those. So we do want to attempt to ticket and tow in those trouble areas, which we haven't done in years past. And that will make the snow removal more efficient.
Is this supplemental? Because I do have CEO Williams would like to speak to it to Councillor Wilson.
I'll defer to the CEO and then I will have a supplemental.
Okay,
yes.
that sounds fine. Thank you so much. CEO Williams.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Wilson. Just to add on Director Greco's comments, where the bus picks up students and where our red routes are not the same thing. It's basically long and short of it. Our red routes do stay fairly static year over year, and the logic there is where the bus mainly travels to get to school, we want to make sure it's as clear and safe as possible. When it comes to individual pickup spots, we kind of rely on the school divisions letting us know in real time, because those can really shift even during the school year. This year, the Viceroy Crescent, for instance, in the Vistas was one that we didn't quite know about, but we got complaints from bus drivers vis-a-vis the school division. So we add almost as a on the fly, if I had to call it that. But the red routes stay static, and our priority first is red routes, then uptown. So that's where perhaps it's not as clear in our policy where it could be expanded, that we are first priority making sure those bus routes are safe first, and then moving our resources to the purple route. So.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. And that, the explanation from the CEO does help, because I did have one or two citizens contact me, I believe in the Highlands, about school bus routes. And buses didn't run there previous years. They are now running there now, and exactly to the CEO's point, with drifting snow and blowing snow and everything else, becomes a little bit of a traction problem for the bus. And these individuals were asking me, how do they ensure that those bus routes get, where this bus is now going, get plowed, so your explanation helps.
Thank you for that. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I do have a couple of questions through you to Director Groyko. And I'm going to start off with a word I don't like using very often, anecdotally. So anecdotally, family and friends of mine throughout other Alberta communities have told me that their residential roads are never cleared of snow throughout the year. Now, I've only lived in Olds, Alberta. I've never lived in another Alberta community, so I don't have any personal experience of this. But I'm going to ask you, in your experience as a municipal operations manager, is it typical for Alberta towns to have residential roads cleared the 2 or 3 times a year we do in Olds? Or is it more likely to not see residential roads cleared at all?
Again, I can only speak to what I know. If you take Calgary, Edmonton, those types of communities, when you have that big of a city, obviously it requires many, many resources in residential areas. They don't do the actual snow removal. They might do some plowing, again, along bus routes. Other communities, they don't generally clean or do the removal of snow in residential areas. And again, this is a level of service which I would say is probably very, very high for the town of Olds in terms of its cost. But again, that service level is basically handled by council. And again, it is a very, very hard thing to do, to actually do the snow removal. The plowing and stuff can always continue, and that's why when it comes to the removal, that's where it requires a lot of resources to do the entire town. And we're still not complete all of the residential routes. You can get blowing snow and it just changes the entire dynamics. And that's why I'm trying to indicate Uptown Olds, the snow removal for Uptown, I think it's a very, very good thing for the community to have snow removal in the downtown core to make sure that businesses are operating again. But you will find a different level of service in other communities. And it takes a long time to do the town of Olds when it comes to snow removal. I would estimate about 3 weeks to do every roadway within the community.
Thank you for that. And I do have CO Williams. There's your supplemental, Councillor Cummings. Okay. All right. Well, then I'll let CO Williams speak, and then I'll go to you, or I'll go to Councillor Ryan and then back to you, if that's all right. Thank you.
Apologies for interjecting. I just wanted to expand again. I do love anecdotal questions and answers, but in my experience, just both around Alberta and in research, snow plowing is a general yes in 10 of the 10 municipalities. Snow removal is not, if that makes sense. So snow plowing is moving the snow to the side or to a predetermined location. Snow removal is obviously scraping the snow and trucking it off. Smaller communities, in my experience, do snow removal for the entire town more often than larger communities do. Olds, and again, this is only a month into my first winter here, but we're probably to that point where the discussion is warranted, not during probably the snow season, but shortly thereafter, whether we've reached the point where snow removal for the entire community is even worth it, because we're 20 days into the first snow event and we still haven't the entire town cleared. So the efficacy versus the policy doesn't seem to be lining up totally. But for snow removal in core areas, downtown, steep grades, bus routes, that tends to be fairly consistent in every community, in my experience. It's anecdotal, as you mentioned, though. But to have a snow removal as a 100% policy across every road, I would argue it's less common as larger the municipality grows. So, back to you.
Thank you, CO Williams. And now on to Councillor Ryan and then back to Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz, and thank you to CEO Williams for that comment, because that's kind of what I was looking at as well. I mean, obviously, I lived in Calgary for many years. I never had my residential street plowed or cleared at all in the whole 20 years I was there. So I was really surprised when I moved to Olds and saw them removing snow off the street. I think that's definitely something that we need to bring to service level review. I agree that the uptown probably should be cleared because a lot of residents go there to do business, and a lot of businesses are open, and that makes sense to me. But it's certainly, I'd like to see what the total costs are for the snow clearing and how many times a year we would have to do it, according to the snow events that we've been having. And so certainly I'd like to see a more fulsome discussion happen at service level review with regards to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan, and now Councillor Cummings. Thank you for your patience.
Deputy Mayor. So the responses I've got from both administrative personnel and Councillor Ryan as well all lead to what I was getting to as a point. Not only about the snow removal, but about a lot of the other functions that we have in the towns that were brought up today in Director Greco's report, the numerous skating pads that we have in our community, which is an absolute phenomenal thing, but is not in a lot of other towns our size by far. Winterized porta potties, I still shake my head at that one. I've never heard of that ever anywhere in any province I've ever lived in or any community I've ever lived in. These are the scoop-em things that we've been accustomed to over the years in this town. And I agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Ryan that we need to take a better look at these issues moving forward. I know today is not the time to do that, but it is the time to lay the foundation for reminding the community that, especially the ones that love to complain that the snow is not being removed fast enough, that they live in a community where snow is removed. And that is not common in communities of our size in this province. And that's something that they have to understand too, that the town can work as hard as it can to get that snow removed, but patience is required when we're even doing it. And I think the conversation moving forward in the next few years is going to be a reduction in services, not an increase in services of snow removal, as it is more common in our communities to be along those lines. So I just wanted to bring that up and lay a foundation that nobody likes to hear.
Thank you for that. And I guess my suggestion would be to administration at this point in time that perhaps we need to do a little bit more or gain a little bit more information and do some investigation as to what other communities our size are doing. And I do believe that in the past we have had total budgeted costs for snow removal. I believe in the past years that Sheen has been able to provide that to us. So our Director of Finance should be able to bring that back to us as well. Mayor Dahl, you had a question?
Not a question, just a comment when you're done.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I've spoken.
As you've just stated, Deputy Mayor Blatz, there's an upcoming Mayor's South Central meeting, and that is one of the questions on the table for the round table. So I'll be able to bring that back to all council of other municipalities in the area.
That would be great information to share. Thank you so much. So are there any further comments or questions of Director Greco at this point in time? I do have one question then, or comment if I could make it, please. Noting here your trail network and the red routes along Highway 27, we're not responsible for plowing that snow or snow removal along there. That is Alberta Transportation or Volker Steven, I believe it is who's contracted to. But I did note that along the roads there where some of our trails are, they leave quite a windrow. And when we go along to remove the snow on those sidewalks, and in our lovely Chinook weather, we tend to get more often than not, perhaps, it tends to make those sidewalks extremely icy because there's nowhere for that snow to melt. And I did see some comments in regards to that. So is there any way to communicate with Alberta Transportation or somewhere where we could have better snow removal done before someone gets hurt falling or slipping on one of those sidewalks? Or are you even aware of that's a concern by citizens, I guess is how I should really have posed the question. But yeah, I think that's something we need to definitely address. Director Greco.
Yeah, I can add comment to that. Thank you for the question. It is a very good question. we sat down with Alberta Transportation prior to the snow events that we had. One of the areas of concern, and I guess to note for everyone that Alberta Transportation doesn't do snow removal. So they will not remove the snow, they will only do snow plowing. And what that does is, depending on the size of the snow event, the more snow you get, the more they're pushing off to the side. Some of those pinch points are at the intersections along that connected sidewalk. Depending on the speed that the plow is going, it does make it very difficult to clean off the sidewalks, because if the plows are going at a considerable speed through town, they're doing the work that we have to do. So Parks and Recreation has to go out and plow the sidewalk. We try to do that after Alberta Transportation has gone through. So, because if we're going to remove the snow from the sidewalk, it becomes troublesome when AT sends their plows through town. So we do try to work in conjunction with them. They will not do snow or ice control on the sidewalk. That is all done by town staff. But again, we will take a concerted effort to look at those painful areas, and we get most of those through RAPs, and we try to react very quick as they do come in.
And thank you for that, and I didn't really mean to put you on the hot seat at all. I have CO Williams and then Director Cummings.
Close enough. And to add again to Director Rico's comments, that's something I heard several times during the warm spell. Unfortunately, there's no way around this except a service level increase during the freeze and thaw cycle that we experience in Chinook season on a weekly basis, but certainly all through March and April. We do sand and salt, of course, but when you're freezing and thawing, the salt and sand gets frozen under the once was water, and it's essentially useless. So it really requires us to be more concerted, spend more time, spend more money on those Highway 27 sidewalks. Alberta Transportation won't change their service level with regards to plowing the highway, so it's really on us to get there quicker, but which is always a resource allocation issue.
Thank you for that, CO Williams, and you're absolutely right. It is a resource allocation issue as well. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So very much in line with the question you yourself asked a moment ago here. So, but not with the sidewalks, with the roads themselves. So Highway 27 being the major artery through the east-west of town of Olds. This last snow event that we had, they did a really good job clearing the main road. However, very clearly the turning lanes in a lot of cases were just not plowed at all off of Highway 27. Going off into the co-op, for instance, of Highway 27, that turning lane was not plowed in any way whatsoever, and is slowly melting sometimes. It's still not usable as a turning lane. Is situations like that, should citizens, and this is the question I have, is should citizens then be calling the town of Olds, report a problem, or commenting through the town of Olds saying, hey, the turning lane north onto 54th Street Avenue, I can't remember which number that is not cleared, we can't use the turning lane. Now we know that it's highway services, Alberta Highways or Alberta Traffic that clears that, but should we be reporting that to the town of Olds, so the town of Olds can then report it to Alberta Traffic, or search Google and find some way of reporting that to Alberta Traffic ourselves? Which is the best, in administration's opinion, for citizens to do?
CO Williams.
Thanks for the question. Ideally, it's best if Alberta Transportation is contacted directly. Them or Volker Steven both have offices for the central zone, and Olds does have its detachment office as well for Volker Steven. But that being said, we get complaints all the time about the condition of Highway 27, and while curb to curb is AT's responsibility and everything back from the curb is ours, we generally don't pass along that information just for the ease of conversation's sake. But I think we can do a better job in making that information available, both the numbers and the priority, and whether people choose to follow that is up to them. But I'm not sure how many calls they take in that regard. But you're right, judging by the ongoing condition of the turning lanes, they probably don't take many or don't respond to the ones they take. So.
Thank you for that. Are there any further questions at this time for Director Greco? Okay, seeing none, then I will ask the question of council. How do you want to make this motion pass for information and bring further discussion back regarding service level for snow removal, or to bring to service level? Is that what it would be, legislative clerk? To bring, or do we need to even just, do we need to give clear direction to administration, I guess is my question.
Yeah, I think receiving the report for information and directing administration to bring back the matter at a future council meeting would be sufficient, and I'll have it in my next action item report list at a regular council meeting for discussion.
Perfect, thank you so much. So I will then ask for a motion to accept this report for information and bring back to a further council meeting. I believe I saw Councillor Ryan's hand up first.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I move that we accept the operations / capital project monthly update as presented and direct administration to bring back information with regards to this item on snow clearing and snow removal at a future council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that motion. I will now call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you so much for that, Council. It's unanimous. We will now move along to item number 6, bylaws and policies review, which there are none at this time. I see number 7, there is new business. There is no new business at this time either. We will move along to item number 8, which is the CAO verbal report update. And CEO Williams, that's your report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And only had one brief item. The annual certificate of recognition core audit was complete. This was our year for an external audit for our safety program. Just to report the high-level stats, our overall score was 84%, which is down 6% from our 2019 score of 90%, but up 3% from our 2021 internal audit. So a mixed bag there. This does relate to 2023 budget discussions, and while the health and safety proposed position is not going forward this year, we'll bring this information forward as a larger item in the new year for the town's health and safety program and its direction. So just for information's sake, we still have a core certification. We did pass our audit. Staff are working hard on it with certainly room for improvement. So we'll have more information to share in the future, and that's all I had to share at this point in time, but happy to take questions on that or other matters that pertain to myself.
Thank you, CEO Williams, and I have Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Just a quick question for the CEO. So you mentioned our score is 84%, down 6. What is the threshold? Is it 50% pass fail?
I believe it's 75.
Thank you, that's good information. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Through you to CAO Williams. Now, is this the report that affects our premium amount for our WCB?
Yes.
And so this reduction of 6 points, how much do you feel that that's going to affect our overall costs for our insurance premiums then?
It shouldn't affect it at all as long as we still maintain the certification. There's no significant warning signs right now to alert ourselves or WCB or AMSA, the Alberta Municipal Health and Safety Association, to flaws in our program. So for our premium dividend, it should be status quo. But of course, declining scores are always a concern. So.
Supplemental, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Daly.
Is there one particular area where we fell short on as comparison to other years?
There's a few different things I think that have the same overall relevance, and that's the in the field aspect of health and safety, that we have a lot of paperwork done and submitted correctly, what we call field level hazard assessments and toolbox talks and pre-job work plans. Those don't seem to have a connection to the employees in the field and are done more administratively. And some of the FLHAs, as I'll use the acronym for, a lot of them weren't physically done, more just spoken about according to employees in our auditor's report. So it's something I think staff have communicated to me in the past, that our health and safety function needs a more in kind of worker in the field presence. So people understand their duties, they understand what's required legislatively via paperwork they're required to do every day. But that presence in the field to lead them through a toolbox talk or pre-job hazard assessment or identifying FLHA hazards, it hasn't quite connected there yet historically. So I think that's where our area of improvement will be for 2023. And when we come back to 2024 budget, we'll have a more comprehensive plan in place. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that information. Are there any further questions of the CAO? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Just, one or two quick questions related to this core audit. You mentioned, I didn't catch it at the start, what's the cycle for the external core audit, and what are we looking at then? Our 84% rating is now good for the next year, or it's good until the next external audit, or does it depend also then on our next internal audit?
2025 will be our next external audit, and that's the primary factor in determining our, I'll call it our maintaining our core certification. So.
With that, are there any further questions of CAO Williams? Seeing none, could I ask for a motion then to accept his report for information? Mayor Dahl.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I move that council accept the report, CAO verbal update report as presented.
Thank you for that. Now I will ask for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. We will move along now on our agenda. We are now going into a closed section under FOIP Section 16, disclosure harmful to business interest of a third party, where we will be discussing recycling, the service level discussion on recycling. And I would now say that when council, to our general public who are listening or watching, when council goes into a closed session for continued participation in the virtual council meeting, stay online in the live stream meeting platform, and the meeting stream will be replaced by a graphic and music will play. When the music stops, the meeting is reconvening. If you choose to shut down your live stream, watch the Town of Ol's social media feeds where the reconvening time will be posted. The social media feeds can also be found at the bottom of the homepage on the Town of Ol's website. And I will now ask for someone to move to go into a closed session at 2:43 p.m. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I move that we go into closed session referring to Section 16, disclosure harmful to business interests, third party at 2:43, with all parties present attending the closed session.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I will now call for the vote. All of those in favor? Thank you so much. That is carried unanimously. We will now go into closed session, and we will reconvene at a later time. Thank you.
Hey Alberta, did you know there is no known safe amount of alcohol during pregnancy? If you're pregnant or planning to be, start your Dry 9 today. Signing up for a Dry 9 means you're committing to going alcohol-free during your pregnancy. All mums to be get a free shirt. So visit dry9.ca and sign up today. A message from Drink Sense.
Every great endeavor begins with a question. The question of how. How high? How far? How in the world can we do this? Engineers and geoscientists make it possible. And for more than 100 years, the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists of Alberta has proudly regulated these professions to keep Albertans safe. APEGA. Build trust, and you can build anything.
Shop local. 2 words you can put to good service at Certified Radio. Family owned and operated, Edmonton born and raised since 1953. Certified Radio is your one-stop mega shop for stereos, accessories, remote starters, and way more. Upfitting, upgrading. We are your trusted choice for sound advice and a great price. Our technicians are the best in the business, and every product we carry is certified approved. We are proud to serve you in our Westside Megastore on 170th Street and online at certifiedradio.ca. Certified Radio, Edmonton's remote starter headquarters.
I'm Dr. Chris Sikora, Medical Officer of Health for Alberta Health Services. Right now, Alberta is seeing a steep increase in respiratory viruses that can seriously affect all ages. Symptoms include sudden fever, cough, body aches, headache, and feeling very tired. Immunization is the best way to protect yourself and your family, and it's so important to stay home when you're not feeling well. Learn more about your healthcare options at ahs.ca/options or call 811.
Every great endeavor begins with a question. The question of how. How high? How far? How in the world can we do this? Engineers and geoscientists make it possible. And for more than 100 years, the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists of Alberta has proudly regulated these professions to keep Albertans safe. APEGA. Build trust, and you can build anything.
If you own, buy, or sell heavy equipment and trucks as part of your business, Ritchie Brothers Inside Edge podcast is here to help you keep up on prices and market trends. We take a look at an equipment category and talk about what's going on with prices, supply, demand, and more, with interviews from industry experts. So subscribe to Ritchie Brothers Inside Edge podcast, now on Spotify.